This is the Home Service Expert Podcast with Tommy Mello. Let's talk about bringing in some more money for your home service business.
Welcome to the Home Service Expert, where each week, Tommy chats with world-class entrepreneurs and experts in various fields like marketing, sales, hiring, and leadership to find out what's really behind their success in business. Now, your host, the Home Service Millionaire, Tommy Mello.
Welcome back to the Home Service Expert Podcast. I'm your host, Tommy Mello, here with Richard Behney. Richard, I'm going to do an introduction, but how's your day going?
It's going great, brother. We're loving it. It's a fun day, fun day, fun day. That's what we always say here. Okay.
You're the host of Potty Talk Live, the founder of the Million Dollar Plumber. You were the president and CEO of AttaBoy Plumbing for 16 years. You just got out of that business about a year ago, it looks like, here, February of 2017. The vice president of site review operations at BrowSafe. And right now you develop and grow, specialized in plumbing, but this applies to roofing, garage doors, everything are the same principles. But you went soup to nuts from the beginning, from the kitchen table, and grew a multi-million-dollar, a lot of truck business, and now you're just consulting, right?
That's what we're doing now. Yeah, you're right, Tommy. You know, this kind of stuff does cover all the trades, but we really have, and I say we, my wife and I, we worked this together. We grew the business together, but we just have a heart for plumbers, and we love plumbing. We can't help ourselves. Okay.
Oh man, this is exciting for me. Yep. I just love this stuff. So tell me a little bit about where you came from.
Well, I was born in 1963. We'll start back that far, but no, I think I kind of like with plumbers. I fell into plumbing. You know, we were talking before the show here. How do we get into plumbing? And so where I came from, of course, I had other dreams and aspirations, and spent some time in country music and Nashville and that kind of stuff, and time in the service and Navy. And when you get out, those things didn't work out, and I just kind of found, through a friend, I wound up working for a plumbing company, and I kind of found myself in plumbing, and fell into it. That's what we say. We just kind of fall into plumbing, and that's what's common with literally plumbers all over the world. It's my privilege now. I get to speak with guys all over the world, guys and gals. There are a few gals out there doing it as well. We all seem to just kind of fall into plumbing, and the same thing happened with me. And then found I was pretty good at it, and somewhat enjoyed it, and but did pretty well at it. And then I got the bug. I've always kind of been an entrepreneur at heart, and look back and look at different things I did, even with my music career. The first time I ever went to a concert, was excited to see the band and all, of course. But I started counting seats and figuring out how much everyone paid for each seat. So I've always been intrigued with the idea of making money on scale. And so, I thought instead of working for this guy, I'll start my own thing and I'll make more money myself. So here we are today.
Yeah, I think everybody wants. I really didn't work for anybody in the garage door niche, but my partner did at one point, and of course, it seems the grass is always greener.
Yeah, yes, it is. But it still needs to be mowed.
You need to mow that lawn and you need to water it. And the thing is that back then, I just thought it was so easy. The marketing has always come easy to me. But, the one part that's so hard is scaling good people. And what's your perception now that you can look back at the business you ran for 16 years? What was the biggest hardships in your particular case? What was the struggles that you don't miss it?
Oh yeah, right. Well, of course, starting out, you're exactly right. Tommy, we jump in these things, and you just, we're going to take over the plumbing world, and we think that we just get, in my case, we had a beater truck, a few hand tools, and plumbing license, and a plumbing dream. And we think that we just get out there and that everything's just going to, go our way or come our way. And it's a whole nother reality. And so just even starting out, what we find is the plumbers, we're very good at what we do, and especially those who decide to even start their own business, are very good plumbers, but we're not businessmen. And neither was I when I started out. And so you're out there just scrounging for all the work that you can get. You don't know what you're charging or why you're pricing the way you're doing. You just basically take the price book from the last company you worked at and charge a little bit less, or you talk with guys at the supply house and figure out what the competition is charging, and you just charge a little bit less. Or the worst case, what most guys do is we just pull it out of ours, and we charged this much last time, so hey, we'll charge this much again. Or I need to make this much this week, so I'll charge this much. So I was doing all those things as well, and really getting nowhere. and just struggling. And it's just basically you own your job. I don't know if you ever felt like that, Tommy.
Oh,
Every time when, your name was on the truck, but you just basically owned your job and just work it all the time. And, that's how I and a lot of guys out there, how it's happening. Until one day I finally, I got a mentor, a business mentor, and then things took off. And, I started learning the business side of things. And that's when things took off for me.
I think everybody needs a mentor. Everybody needs someone to come in to be that exterior view of your business and be able to look down and slap you around and tell you you're not doing this right, or that a boy, keep it up. Half the battle is realizing that.
Oh, exactly right. I think, in the trades, and certainly, I speak from plumber. I can speak very comfortably being in the plumbing industry and being around plumbers and being that kind of guy that, we have a hard time. First of all, if you started, if you're in plumbing, you're kind of an alpha male, kind of a guy. I get it done. Nothing's going to get past me. I got it under control. And then certainly when you start your own business, your own plumbing company, you think, hey, I can get it done. I got it under control. So it's tough for us to admit, to reach out for help. That sounds weak, but really that's wisdom and that's strength. And that's how most successful people do it, is by, standing on the shoulders of others and learning from others.
Yeah, I got to tell you, just we talked about this earlier, but being a part of Service Titan, talking to plumbers, electricians and air conditioning companies, it's almost like, and we talked a little bit earlier about Jim Abrams, and it's like they pioneered the financing, the service agreements. They put this stuff out so long ago in the 70s and 80s, and the garage doors are just coming up to this, but every industry could use a service agreement. Every industry could use financing and some of these business operational things that we discuss. Oh, definitely. Little things like that is learning those kinds of things too, of having service agreements and putting financing in place. That was one of the best things that I ever did, was offering, we called it the AttaBoy Assurance Program. And it allows you to get that information to be able to communicate with those customers again, after the fact, but to be able to, get back in their homes a couple times a year and provide some service, which usually creates other opportunity. I mean, service agreements are one of those key things that you just don't think about or even know really how to put into place, and certainly, the financing and that kind of stuff. Those are key things to helping your business be successful. Absolutely. And, you recently, so if you don't mind me asking, 2017 in February, did you kind of give it to a family member? Did you sell your company? I don't want to know prices or anything, but. No, we wound up selling it. We were always having companies hit us when you get to a certain size and you set up your company up in a certain way. And by the way, really, if you're looking, those are looking to purchase your company, they're looking for two things, and that's they're looking for a recognized service, a brand in the market, and in a company that has systems already in place. So these things that you're just mentioning about having service agreements and financing available, Service Titan, that use those kinds of things. Those are systems, and so it's important to have those things in place. And so we certainly did, and guys will start, their companies will start calling and knocking on the door, and they're wanting to buy you, and that's what was happening. And finally, there was enough offers being made that the price was going up, and then the price got big enough. But also, I was set at that time. I was ready to sell. It was ready to move on. I was doing some other things, and the timing was right. We didn't sell out to the highest bidder. I sold out to these happened to be local, but they had other businesses and that were similar, and it would work with what the culture that I had created. So I took a little bit less, but it wound up being better for what I thought was still my baby, our baby, and it's turned out to be a good thing. So that's really interesting to me, because right now, 7 out of 10 baby boomers in the next 5 years are getting ready to get rid of their business. Now, I've talked to a lot of guys that say the only way I can make the money I need to make for my lifestyle is to hire a really good general manager. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. So If you want to sell your business, let's talk about what they need to be thinking about and how to set up this next 3 to 5 years to be able to really get the most out of your business. So can you give us some insight into that? Well, definitely it's being set up with systemized, that you have a system in place. Again, in my experience with everyone that was looking seriously at AttaBoy Plumbing,
were attracted to two things. That was a brand that was very recognizable in the market. And so branding is very important. And then you had a system in place. Basically, this thing was like a money machine. That's what they're looking for. Can they come in and just maybe throw a little bit more money at it, grease it a little bit more to make more money? And that's about as cold or as sterile as it really gets. It's those two things. And so definitely I want to be making sure that you're creating a brand in your market, an emotional brand too. Today it's pretty important, socially to be, are you recognized socially? That's all part of it there. And then, of course, having the systems in place that and one way you can tell if you have enough systems in place, can you walk away from the business for a month and it's still going to run just fine, without you checking on anything. And so those are the two things that are very important in my opinion and, my experience.
So I'm a little bit different in the fact that I would want to acquire a business without Service Titan, without these major systems, because I don't look at it as a cash flow machine. I look at it as a way to go into a market versus grow organically. As I push these systems in, the ROI I become very profitable, because if I could increase the conversion rate, increase the average ticket, increase the service agreement, increase the financing we sell, increase the booking rate, and really, like you said, kind of throw some gas on the marketing. And I've got good technicians. I'm really buying the good technicians and the goodwill of the brand, and then I'd convert it. But definitely, if I was to buy a company straight for the cash flow, I'd want to make sure they've got manuals. I want to make sure they've got an org chart, and that there's no key man that if this guy leaves, the business falls apart. So I think that's what you sold, and it's worth a lot of money. I mean, I know some companies right now are getting 7 to 8 times, which is a really high, $10 million plus company, but they're getting 7 to 8 times profit.
Yep. And you said something key, Tommy, I want to hit on and we see this as you mentioned, not having a key guy. And a lot of these companies, we do have a tendency to start our businesses and our egos can take over. We kind of start it because of our ego, and then being involved in it, our ego feels that, we need to be on top of everything, that everybody needs to know that I'm here. I need to micromanage everything, one way or another, those kinds of things. But it's so important that you aren't, like of my business, it didn't need Richard Behney. In fact, no one really even knew who Richard Behney was. And if Richard Behney was gone to Costa Rica with family or we're doing whatever, business didn't care. No one else, vendors, no one cared. But they knew what AttaBoy was, AttaBoy Plumbing, and it was running on its own. So it's so important for, the owner operator to be able to position himself, behind the scenes, to get himself out of the business to where he's not seen as being needed in any way, shape, or form for the business.
Yeah, and that's really difficult to do. We talked earlier, and I told you, it sounds really bad, but you said you love working with small guys, and I said I don't love it as much, just because sometimes you're speaking French. I feel like I am when I'm talking about KPIs and all these different numbers and really like how to recruit the top players, and they're like, dude, I can't even get one good guy. What are you talking about recruiting full time and all this stuff? So it's really good to hear somebody that I love people, so I can work with anybody. But the fact is that I just don't like to talk over people's heads, and I'm not smarter. I just know I could impact people really, really fast on a CRM, and I can actually show them that I'm bringing them huge value because I increase their booking rate, their average ticket, their marketing dollars drop dramatically. And it's factual. What do you find with the smaller guys that are still using paper invoices and don't have a pricing structure?
Yeah. Well, they're on the verge of having a heart attack. That's what they are. That's what I find. But when I say I love to talk to all guys, I'll correct that a little bit. I don't love talking to all small guys. I literally get called every day. I'm putting myself out there, with Potty Talk Live and, with our academy that's coming up and that kind of stuff for, the teaching guys, plumbing, the business of plumbing. And so I'm getting approached and literally talk to guys at least every other day that want me to coach them personally. Majority of everyone I turn down because they're not ready. Okay. But I love talking. I'm surprised by this. I never thought when we sold the plumbing business, in fact, when we sold the business, we were done with plumbing and plumbers. Okay. But we got back in with the consulting. We were asked to help and do things. And so here we are today. But we found out that we loved it. I love talking with the guys that when a guy does have in his frame of mind that he can say, I don't know these things, but I want to know this because I want to grow my plumbing business. That is so fulfilling to help those guys. I enjoy the big corporate stuff and been approached to do, to consult for big corporate plumbing and that kind of stuff. I have to admit, I'm a little bit of the opposite. That bores me because that's those guys. It's just the money, and I just don't enjoy that. I just find it extremely fulfilling. We're taking where most guys are and where I came from to take the guy that has, one truck, two trucks, can't figure out how to find the right guys, doesn't know his pricing, doesn't know what numbers to look at, doesn't know how to market, is doing everything on paper, but knows that that's not working and he's asking for help. I love that.
The fact that, you said the key thing is they're asking for help, and the fact that they're asking for help, I mean, that alone makes me want to work with them. And you're right 100%. It's just the guys that have this I can't. That I can't attitude, and the world hates me and nobody wants to work for me, and unemployment's so low you can't get any good people and all the guys steal from me. But they're not the ones asking for help, are they?
No, they're not. In fact, that's the first, that's the big thing out there. Just can't find any plumbers. My first question to the guy, and to see how he reacts, is, well, why would anyone want to work for you? Just to see where it comes from. It's always been, I've been in the plumbing industry for 30 years, and you've never been able to find good plumbers. It's always been that. There's always been, yes, there's less people going into trades. There was other times when there was less people going into trades. There is plenty of good plumbers out there. It's just, do you have a process in place that you're attracting and then able to retain those good plumbers? That's a process system. That's that you have to have in place. So yeah, there's plenty of guys, and we get that, and that's one of the reasons why 95% of all plumbing companies fail. Is the guys just get into it and then they just get start pointing the fingers elsewhere. And they get fatigued and just upset and wore out. Sadly, I talk to guys, again, literally every other day, older guys that have just been run through the ringer and they're beat up. And just, it's a sad story.
So, speaking of why would they work for you, do you love hourly, commission, or a hybrid?
I love piece rate.
Oh, perfect. Piece rate's beautiful.
Piece rate is the only way that you really can be fair to both the technician and to yourself, to your business, and it gets you out of a babysitting situation. It is the best way to go. Will your whole shop be piece rate? No, we talk about that, but we always try to work for go towards piece rate.
So piece rate, in my definition of piece rate, is commission. I mean, it really is, because commission is just a fancy word for it, because either way, if you're selling it for this much, you've got a price book, hopefully. And you're making, if you get done in an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, you're making this percentage. So no matter what, if you got the price book and you're making this much, I don't know what that percentage is, and it might vary, but it's almost the same as commission. And if piece rate for a mechanic is, if it takes 6 hours in the book to finish this transmission and you get done in 3, you still make the same amount of money. So
exactly. Well, see, the sad thing, at least certainly within the plumbing industry with commission, first of all, guys don't understand commission programs. They don't. Majority of guys don't understand it. And then next, what happens is the owner starts messing with commission programs. And what I mean by that is, if they got guys starting to beat it, then they change up the percentages on this product or this service that we sell. It's this time for this amount of time. If you sell this many and all that, you lose the guys on that kind of thing. What I love about piece rate, and what always worked for me for years, is that just like you use the mechanic example, that's where piece rate comes from. It's been in there for years. But a guy gets an hourly rate. So if I'm paying a guy $20 an hour, say for a water heater, the water heater pays 4 hours to install. Okay, 4 hours to for this water heater at $20 an hour. The guy knows exactly what he gets. Whether it takes him 4 hours, 3 hours, 2 hours. You ask most guys how long it takes them to install a water heater, an hour and a half. So you can see how they have more control of their situation, and it's easier to understand. And so that's in my experience, piece rate was just always the best route to go. Now, not everyone was piece rate though, because there's guys that just need to know that they need, I make this much a week. I need to bring $1,000 home every week. And some guys just want to know, I just want to know I make $25 an hour. I want to make $25 an hour. But piece rate was the best and simplest way that provided me as the owner of the business the most freedom and the most efficient way to audit and keep track of everything.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's almost the same. And the thing that's tough about piecework for me is we've got so many SKUs, and even on a custom door, it's just really tough to. We do pay piecework. We pay a fixed cost if you install a door, a fixed cost if you install an opener.
Yeah.
Commission. And people argue about commission. They say people on the 31st of the month are selling things too high to pay their rent. And there's certain things, and there are people like that. That's why you have to have a price book. That's why you got to do customer surveys. That's why you got to make sure that they're replacing the bad parts. But I will tell you this: you come to my house, and I got a toilet that was installed, and the I don't know what it's called. The flap goes bad, and it's leaking water. And Richard, you say, hey, Tommy, these toilets are all the same age. This house is 10 years old. This is going to keep happening to all of them. Now, let me ask you this, Richard. The flappers weren't bad on the other 4 toilets I have, were they?
Were they bad at the moment? No.
And it's not disingenuous to replace those knowing that they've been flushed a certain amount of time. They're a certain age. So some people feel like this is the biggest problem in most home services is there's the guys that say, absolutely, that's okay. You gave the customer options and they decided to do it. And there's other guys that go, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I don't believe in it. But as a technician, what gives you the right to judge?
Oh, exactly. So, Tommy, you hit my hot spot here. In fact, in the plumbing where we talk about hack plumbers and about the work they do, if you're not providing customers option, you're a hack plumber. It's if you're not allowing the customer to make a choice. If you're just saying, hey, here's what it costs to replace this flapper, what you're doing is you're painting that customer into the corner. That's the only decision they have to make. You're not allowing them to understand what else is going on in their home plumbing wise. You're not allowing them to make a choice on whether or not they want to hit it now or have to deal with it later, or even to, we're talking about replacing fixtures and that kind of stuff, what it would take to raise the quality of their life. They get to make that decision. So who are you as a technician to deciding that's all that I need to do? That's not professional plumbing. That's not a professional tradesman.
Well, there's a lot of plumbers, just like garage door guys, just like HVAC, that go, I'm going to fix it for the cheapest amount, and that's how I do business. And I always say there's 3 ways to do this. You're going to be the fastest, you can be the cheapest, or you can be the best at it, meaning the best parts with the best value. But you can't be all 3. And I chose a long time ago, I'm not going to be the cheapest.
Look, we had a lot of happy. We certainly weren't the most expensive in town. We were our price, what we needed for AttaBoy plumbing price. There's a lot in what I just said there. But we weren't the most expensive, and we certainly weren't with the cheapest in town. But our customers loved AttaBoy plumbing, and we provided a good service. I had guys making 6 figures, doing service plumbing, working 5 days a week, 8 to 5 in Indianapolis, So we were able to provide that by what we charged, and with full benefits and those kinds of things. And it provided a good life for me and my family. Another, 95% of all plumbing businesses fail within the first 3 years. Of the 5% that make it, 97% of those spend the rest of their lives just living paycheck to paycheck. So you can be proud, all right, brother, that you're the cheapest in town. But I talk to guys again that are 55, 60, and on the verge of tears, literally every other day, Tommy, that have had a mortgage, they've spent their families through schools, they've gone to Disney World, all that kind of stuff. And now they have nothing to show for it at the end of their careers and their lives.
Yeah, it's amazing. And that's the thing is they can't quit work. And I got to tell you, my New Year's resolution, I learned this thing is called What's in It for Me with them, right?
Yeah.
Learning about that for the other person. And right now, I've been a failure of not creating a common WIFM in my company other than for the technicians. So right now we came up with a new compensation program for the CSRs. And I want to share it with you and I want to get your thoughts. We're basically going off of now certain key performance indicators and just let's just call it metrics so people understand. So there's attendance, interdepartment errors, shift differential. So if they come in, if they're working a late shift or early shift, the quality of the call with a scorecard, and the booking rate and the cancellation rate. So all these make up. So as a CSR, you have to book phone calls.
Right.
What we found was, you're going to love this. The current pay structure, we have a gal that would have made $592 at $15 an hour for the week.
Yep.
If she got paid for a call that she books based on this new calculation, she would have made $1,212. Now, what I love about this is 7 CSRs would have made minimum wage. Instead of $15 an hour, they would have made $10 an hour. So what it does is you reward the right stuff. And all of a sudden she goes, wow. She goes, I'm making great money now. And the cream rises to the top. And people say, I don't like performance pay. It's not fair. These excuses of commission or like you said, fixed work. And
right.
If you could pay on this structure, and I'm working on getting it for dispatching, which I'm telling you, the biggest thing for me is that top producers with the best customer service rating, with the best conversion rate are now optimized. That means if they're available 40 hours, they're working 40 hours. And that's how you can benefit with the dispatchers. And there's certain things, but doesn't that make sense that the WIFM is now, if you book the phone, so literally they get $1 if they're on time and they're on time with their breaks. They get $1 for no errors. They get $1 extra if they're on an early shift or a late shift. They get the quality score is $1. And now if you're 90% booking rate or better, you get $5 on that call. So you got a total to make $9 per call that you book. And that's why that gal made so much money, because she's doing, out of 11 people, she's doing a third of the work. So by rewarding the right stuff, you get A players. Do you have any experience when it comes to a pay for performance model such as this for the call center?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I love it. I agree, with that kind of system, setting that kind of thing up. I also, added another acronym, I guess, is that what that is, with them. I also went with the KISS method, which my thing was always keep it simple, stupid. Again, I'm a plumber, man. So, I'm a simple man. And so I come from looking at things that way. And so I did a similar kind of a thing where I still paid our CRMs, and most I had was had 6 ladies answering the phones at one time. And so I did a thing where we were paying a base salary of like, 12, not salary, but an hourly $12 an hour. Okay. Something like that. But we would pay $5 to $10 for every booked call. Because that was our thing. We just wanted to book every call. Well, we got out there. We get out there. I got a plumber out there. We got the call. We had a 98.7% closing rate. Okay. We didn't walk out of the house. We found that no one wakes up in the morning and wants to call a plumber. All right. Nobody wants to call a plumber in the morning. So if they called you, they want to get whatever done, period. Okay. So you just need to find a way where it makes it possible for you to do the work. Because if you don't do the work, they're going to call Ben Franklin, a Roto-Rooter. Okay. So I knew if I got the ladies would book the call to motivate them. And that's what you're doing with those kinds of things, is to motivate them. So I agree with doing those kinds of, that kind of performance-based pay, but I kept it simpler just because that just worked better for me.
Well, it's easier. The problem with a complicated system like mine, which we're at the scale where we could do it, is that it does take a long time to calculate this stuff, and people need to understand the money that they're making. So what we did is we spent the last 4 weeks going over each call with them and explaining to them how they get paid. And it's pretty simple. Show up on time. Make sure street is not drive, because that's going to send a guy from Anthem to Ahwatukee, which is an hour-long drive if you make that mistake.
That's right.
Take a little bit more if you're... It's not fair that the person that comes in at 5 a.m. can't make money. So we give them a shift differential, and then we make sure that you're smiling on the phone and you're like, oh, absolutely, sir. So it sounds like a great call. But more importantly, the booking rate. Now they're incentivized to do the right thing. And I'll tell you, one thing I've learned about my technicians that increases closing ratios dramatically is you got to diagnose the person first, and then you can diagnose the problem.
Amen, brother. Yep.
So many people leave that out. And I told my guys, I don't ever want to hear that you got a customer. You made this huge sell. I told them, even this morning on my Morning Mojo call, I want to hear that 7 things failed our 25-point inspection, and the customer chose to fix the things that you failed right now. Because that way there's no sales involved. It's simple. This is what didn't pass our inspection, and here's why. Would you like to get this safe right now and fixed? And that way you're not hiring these fantastic, great salesmen. You could hire anybody off the street, and if they could go through our 25-point safety inspection and understand why parts failed, sales comes after that, right?
Oh, Tommy, man, you're right on it, because that's exactly right. Because a lot of guys don't want to sell. I'm not a salesman. I'm not selling. You don't have to sell. We always said you don't have to sell, just excel at serving the customer. So by providing that inspection and going through those kinds of things and just pointing out what's going on in the customer's home and allowing the customer to decide, that's what's happening there. You're just notifying the customer what's happening, and they may have to educate them a little bit about what that means, but you're allowing the customer to decide what kind of environment they want to live in. And that is service. and it sells itself. You're so right. And it's so easy. We had one guy, just, it may sound a little coarse or a little shallow, but it's like shooting fish in a barrel. You don't have to sell. You don't need these pressure selling tactics. You just need to serve the customer.
Well, and I don't think sales is bad, because I'll tell you what, every time I've met a girl or made a friend, I'm actually selling myself.
You're always selling. You're selling your kids. Your kids are selling you.
It's every day.
It's a sales world, man.
Another thing, a little acronym like KISS. And it's funny because some people say keep it simple, stupid. And other people say keep it simple, Simon. But I always say build rapport, educate the customer, and then follow up. Because if you don't follow up, that's how you lose sales. And following up, everybody leaves that one out, though, for some reason. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, there's a nugget of gold. That's what we say, on Potty Talk Live, nugget of gold. Tommy, you just dropped a huge nugget of gold there. And that's it right there. Rapport and follow-up. Sales and the follow-up. And that's service. True service is in the follow-up as well. And
it's just the one thing that McDonald's has so great, and I talk about this in my book that just came out, is that there's systems. That every kitchen's set up the same way. They have a code you hit, it dispenses the soap, and they know that each person hit the code 8 times. And the problem with hiring sales stars is the day that the guy doesn't come into work, the day that guy quits, I just don't like the key guys. And of course we have better guys than others because they're better at building rapport and getting over objections, but all that stuff can be trained. And we talk a lot about guys that can't get out of the 7-figure income and revenue. Why is that? What's stopping them? Because that's one of my questions I wanted to ask you. What came to mind when you first asked that, went right to it, is belief. It just, in my experience, and I'm talking about the guy. Maybe I'm thinking about the one truck Chuck, it's grown to 2 trucks and 3 to get past that 7-figure. In my experience, it's belief. It's just not believing that I'm not worth it. That sounds a little silly, but there's lots of guys. I mean, it's just, that's a feeling. I'm not worth making $1 million. Okay. Then we get into, I'm not capable. That's not who I am. I don't know how to do that. Those kinds of things. That's really where I think, the foundation is the reason for that. Yeah. And, I was reading this book the other day. It's like The Instant Millionaire. And I don't want to talk good or bad about the book. I'm indifferent. I recommend a lot of books. The one thing that he talked about is write down a number that you think is the absolute highest. And I'm talking reach as hard as you could. Write it down. And then, what I told my guys at my meeting yesterday is simply divide by 12, divide by 4, then divide by 5. That'll tell you what you need to bring in per day. Yeah. And if you're not at that day, tomorrow you need to do a little bit better. But it's not about, look, I'll sell a new opener when the customer doesn't even need an opener, because I'll say this, Richard, I noticed you seem like a guy. I noticed that Nest when I walked in, and I noticed you like to use your phone for different apps. I noticed a couple of things in the home. And that we do have an opener. It's a LiftMaster that you could actually close the door, open it from anywhere in the world as long as there's internet. Is that something that you'd be interested in? And the fact, I didn't lie, cheater, still, did I? I gave you an option. Exactly. And people say all the time, there's certain people in my industry that think it's so bad. Look, if the spring's not broken, don't fix it. But let me ask you this. This is a real question, Richard. How often do you use your garage door? I bet at least a dozen times a day. So 12 times a day. Let's just say you use it 300 times out of the year, and maybe not weekends or holidays. So use it 3,600 times. And I noticed, Richard, that you have a 10,000 cycle spring on your door. Now, what I do know about this, Richard, is here's why it's a 10,000 cycle. That just means up and down cycles is up and down, just like cars have mileage. Well, at 3,600 times, if the house is 3 years old, you're 10,800. And I'm not saying it's going to break tomorrow because I'm not Nostradamus, but I am telling you your cycle life's expired and it's going to break. The question is not if, it's when, and it's going to happen soon. I don't need to lie to you, or your door is heavy, and I'm not going to rewind an old spring, but so many people think, oh my gosh, you did something bad. You should have never sold that because it wasn't broken. And I'm sick of that mentality. And the plumbers, I'm sure, are the epitome of that. Am I right? Oh man, yeah, it's an epidemic over in our industry, and that's part about it. And I'll go back to it is part of that belief, and that's why I kind of lean that way. It's that belief system that they aren't worth that, or they don't need that, or they wouldn't want that. That I can just fix that, and because they have the talent, and we talk about this all the time. I know how to fix my water heater.
I can get that done in 15 minutes. And so I feel, that's what it's worth. I believe that's what it's worth. Does that make sense?
100%. Your own self-beliefs. Yeah. Ara's the CEO of Service Titan. I was on the phone with him and he told me, he said, Tommy, the funny thing is I had one of the air conditioning companies come out for my HVAC. And Tommy, I live in a nice house. It's a pretty big house. So he said, I knew the one I wanted. And I mentioned to the guy and he goes, oh no, you don't want that. It's too expensive. One of the workers. So Ara called the CEO, the president or whatever, the owner up and said, dude, your guy, send another guy out here. I want the one I want. And I know it's, right. But I want the features and benefits of it. And I'm willing to spend the money. And so many times, look, I'm not the type of guy to buy a lot of service agreements. I mean, if I go to Best Buy and they say, would you like that on this, iPad or whatever? I'm like, nah, no. Yeah. But just because I say no doesn't mean every customer says no. A lot of people say yes.
Exactly.
And why is my decision to decide that?
Right. Exactly. It's a numbers game. It's that kind of a thing. Not every customer is a great example of using, I don't get all the, at Best Buy, I don't get the service agreements and all that. I'm not one that buys those kinds of things. I buy other kind of things though, but I'm not the customer that's going to say yes, but at least was offered that. And I think that's a key, we get to that of guys setting that up in their system. Your original question back was about, why aren't guys hitting, 7 figures? And that's one of the reasons, they've set their business up to simply be a broke fix. That's the culture of the business. It's a broke fix. And you can't become a seven-figure plumbing business by simply being broke fix. It's an extremely difficult thing to do. It's certainly no life. You're not going to, it's not going to be profitable for you.
No, you're absolutely right. And I do feel that, unfortunately, people are not charging enough to be able to afford advertising because they might have some sources like realtors. And there's certain things for real estate agents, home warranty companies. There's a lot of ones we give discounts to, and we're very, very affordable. But the difference is most of the time they're just saying, make it work versus I'm going to live here for the next 15 years. Make it work for the next 15 years. And you know what? Let's talk about marketing for a minute because it's really difficult sometimes for people to find new work. Like that's the opposite of my problem. I need more. I think you probably hear it every day too. Is I need more workers, but I got 120 guys, and I got to tell you, I need about another 150 to keep up with the leads I could get. But how do people get more leads? What would you recommend from a one-man truck? The difference between a 25-man truck or 25 trucks?
It's never been easier to get more leads, to get more customers call you. Today, if you're not getting leads, I mean, you're just not wanting to. It is so easy today with the thing called Google. It is so easy. Back in the day, there used to be this thing they call it the yellow pages. That people would flip through, and that's how they found their plumbers. It was expensive to be in there. I was paying $15,000 a month
for a double truck.
Or a double truck, right? And you had to be in a double truck, okay? And so, because that's where the customers go, they turn to the double trucks. They don't flip back to the other stuff. The majority of the customers, okay? So you got to, how many toilet repairs you got to do for $15,000 a month? I mean, that's a lot of toilet repairs. Or doing TV. I was doing $30,000 a month in TV, $15,000 a month in radio. Okay, so to play that, it's an awfully expensive game, to do that. So there is a barrier to entry. That being said, your customers pay for that, by the way. So your customers pay for your marketing. That's a concept that guys don't understand. Marketing costs, we're starting with guys, and, just to do a decent Google AdWord campaign, you need to spend $1,500 to $2,000 a month. Well, just me. That's just to get started, okay? But you work that into your price. Your customers pay for your marketing. Who do you think's paying for, the commercials you see for Apple, the iPhone? We are. The customer, when we buy an iPhone, part of that price is we're paying for that marketing. Customers pay for your marketing.
Yeah. And if you're an aggressive, that's what causes your price to go up. You add up your widgets, you add up your hours, you add up your profit, and that's how you come up with the price and divide it by that. But the one thing that you mentioned that I guarantee you plumbers screw up, just like every other home service niche, and it took me a long time to realize this, is I make a salary each week, okay? But that doesn't count as the profit of the company.
Right,
so the company still needs to make a profit after I make my money. Where most plumbers go, I'm making $120,000 a year, but they're still out doing the plumbing, and that's considered their profit. And then they go to sell their company, and they're like, "Yeah, it's I'm making $120,000 a year." I'm like, I got to pay another guy 80 grand. So you're actually only making $40,000 after it's all done. If you're making anything. So the people that are out listening, just remember that you compensate yourself. I need to replace you to handle your workload. And whatever over there is considered real profit. So make sure you're adding profit into your pricing.
Oh, exactly. Tommy, you hit right on it. In fact, when I work with my guys and I have a calculator, it's called the Honest Hourly Rate Calculator. And one of the first line item is a salary, and that's a salary you pay yourself. And the next line item is your plumber. Okay. Well, you're also the plumber. All right. But you got to pay yourself first because you're the CEO of the company. And if I'm not paying for that, if you're not doing that work, someone else, I got to pay someone to do that work. Right. So it's that concept. You don't pay yourself out of the profits.
Yeah, that's a hard concept. And I'm telling you, that's a gold nugget. There's another gold nugget for them. Right. So give me some good marketing techniques that we don't really think of very often. There's Google, of course, pay-per-click, organic. There's Nextdoor stuff. There's Yelp reviews. There's a lot. I'm in Valpak, Money Mailer, Clipper. I do everything. But tell me a little bit about some unorthodox methods that's worked for you.
I think Facebook is a huge opportunity. Of course, it's out there. But here's how the guys are doing it. Certainly, the plumbers out there is they're posting pictures of the drain opening, of what they pulled out of the drain, or they're showing, proudly the pipe work that they ran, or the tankless water heater they installed. The consumer does not care at all about that kind of stuff. That's a waste of time. The opportunity with Facebook is setting yourself up as the expert or the guy in the community. They just see that this is the guy. They'll recognize you're the plumbing company, but you're doing a live at the local restaurant and say, eating lunch at it. I love this restaurant. This is Joe's restaurant, and they got a great tenderloin here. Check it out. Come on in, and you even interview the owner of the restaurant. That kind of a thing. Doing those kinds of things and lifting your community up is a huge opportunity. And what that does, again, is it instills your brand within the community. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. It's amazing what happens if you get involved. And I don't know if you know Maricopa County, but there's 32 cities. So you got like the city of Gilbert page. And if you go post in there certain things that are credible, that aren't salesy, that are just like, look what we did for Mrs. Jones in this neighborhood. And it's educating, and there's not this salesy aspect of it. And that's, I just came out with my book, and the truth of the matter is I want to build millionaires. I do. I want to make a lot of millionaires. And the truth is, I send people my book. I'm going to send you a copy of my book. I'll send you 10 copies. But
hey, thank you, brother.
Yeah. I'll actually make sure that gets done. But the point is, I never want to come off as this guy that's like, hey, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. It's like, I think you can get a piece out of this. The end goal is not for me. It's to coach people. And it's not even coaching. We built our first Home Service Millionaire course that I'm like, if I can't make you 100 times more than the course costs, because it's scalable and I want to help the masses, like Joel Osteen. I'm not the Joel Osteen yet. but the Joel Osteen, he gets way more people online and on TV that watch him than actually that are in that huge church. And that's to make it scalable. But if you come from a point of sales, you're not really a good marketer. And that's why you send the before and afters to the local people there. Those before and afters are huge. They help out a lot. So I love the Facebook. I just haven't seen a lot of people make a ton of money on service through Facebook. Do you recommend, the paid ads on Facebook or organic, or what's the stuff that you recommend on that?
Well, the paid ads, the only thing we recommend on paid ads is running the idea that you're always hiring. So that's a different avenue of going. But you do that in a sense because also your consumers who will be using you, when I'm saying you're always hiring for plumbers, okay? But you word it in a way that also gives your company a good feel, a good emotion with the plumbing service consumer. So no, it's that whole thing with Facebook. Again, it's not that you're trying to sell directly. Hey, we're running a special on this. That's a turnoff. What pays dividends is that they see that you were with Mrs. Jones, and hey, we just installed this kitchen sink for Mrs. Jones. What did you think of your experience? And it allows, again, a third party, Mrs. Jones, to say, oh, this was great. They were here. They were prompt, that kind of thing. Let them brag and talk about those kinds of things. But no, it's a powerful tool, and guys just aren't using it in the correct way at all, and they're losing out.
You know, one of the things too that my New Year's resolution is accountability and compliance. And I'll tell you, I was talking with my general manager and one of my service manager, and they both stated that the obvious fact that we got all these reports. But the problem is, if I got to go to 10 different sources to find out what's going on within my company, it's really hard to give verbal warnings. So I want the carrot and I want the stick, right? The both sides. Yeah. But next year going into this thing, we're building checks and balances on a daily basis to make sure the vans are washed, to make sure inventory's on, to make sure you call the manager before you left the job with a 0. And the main thing is that when the cat's away, the mice will play, right? So if nobody's ever watching, so I'm a big guy I'm starting to become this guy that's just all about compliance and making sure the systems are incorporated. And there's somebody that's at least guest checking that maybe I'm not going to go out to every single job, but you better believe I'm going to go to 2 of them a month. And I'm going to check to make sure the wiring's right, make sure you cleaned up after yourself, make sure there's no grease. But more importantly, arrange their pay structures this way so that you reward the right stuff and you did the corrective action against the negative stuff. So what is your whole mentality? And I don't believe, and people hate this about me, that I say people do what you inspect, not what you expect. But the fact is that I just know that that's been true for me. So what do you feel? Generally, people do the right thing, but I'll tell you what, they do what's called creative justification a lot of the time too. You know, they say, this keypad came free and my mom needs one. And I drove extra for Tommy the other day anyway. So it's really, I'm not stealing it. And I'm not saying that's not an instance that I've had, but I'm just making an inference. But what is your mentality against that? I'd love to hear your point of view.
About being on top of all those things, making sure all those things are being done. Is that what you're asking there? Yep.
You know, trust but verify. Is that something you kind of go along with or not really?
Yeah. My thing was, first of all, I was always looking to hire on character. Now we're talking about plumbers. Okay. And so I set the guys up with, I believe and would expect them to do well. That's another reason why I was a fan of piece rate, because that has a kind of way of auditing itself. We also, we would have follow-up calls. So we called every service call after, and we had a checklist. Did we do this? Did we do that? Did we do this? You happy with this? So we had a way of checking up with the guys, and the guys knew that was happening. That was easy within our system. The bottom line was I was all about freedom. I didn't want to babysit. If the guy stepped out of line, we moved guys on quickly too. I kind of mentioned earlier that I said we were always hiring, and that's one thing I always push is we're always hiring. So if guys come in, there's always a low man on the totem pole. And it's not necessarily the amount of what he's selling, okay? It's not necessarily a financial thing. It's on these things. If we gotten some reports that he didn't wear footies, something like that. He hasn't kept the last couple of truck inspections, his cab, he had stuff up on the dash, okay, which, that kind of stuff. Well, we have a guy come in, he's low man on the totem pole, he's out. We replace him with another guy. So we always had a system running with that. That's how I looked at it. And I get the KPIs and get in those kinds of things. You can become slave to your business in different ways. And
especially if it's the owner doing it. And I understand that because you can't be in places at once.
Right. And so that was the culture that I created and was able to create. Did it run perfectly all the time like that? So I did have a trust and verified every so often, but the system we had in place verified as it went. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And it sounds like you did look at the trucks every now and then, probably not the same as I'm talking about. The IRS is the best example. I've never been audited, but the fact is that, I make sure my stuff's correct because of the fact that people do get audited. And if you don't have those systems, just to look every now and then and know that there's going to be a punishment or a reward, because I like the carrot side of things. But, you talked a lot about gold nuggets. Not a lot, but you mentioned Well, give me some stuff that maybe you've had in the Potty Talk that was like just some gold nuggets that you think that maybe are unlooked at sometimes, and just some really good things that you've noticed with your clients in the last maybe couple months or looking back at this year, that some breakthroughs.
Well, I think, thinking about breakthroughs, the guys I talk to are the guys that in the truck, working for someone else, on Potty Talk Live. Potty Talk Live is meant to lift up the plumbing industry and plumbers. So I talk with on that, both a podcast and you can see it live on Facebook as well on the Million Dollar Plumber. And, we do it 3-4 nights a week. I'm talking with guys all over the world. They're either in the truck, working for someone else, or they've started their plumbing business themselves. And look, what in the plumbing side of things, I think what's come out of this, and it's even made me more, so I can sit here, and I'm talking to your listeners, and if they're in the plumbing side of things, that it is clear. We love all kinds of plumbing. Building's great, commercial's great, doing the maintenance and insurance, it can be great. But if you're a plumbing business owner, okay, you're in the plumbing field, if you're doing residential service, you are sitting on a gold mine. And it's never been a better time to be in the plumbing industry. Computers aren't going to take away our jobs. Robots aren't going to take away our jobs. You're still going to need the plumber to go inside the house. And on the residential service side of things, and you're doing the residential service business, you are sitting on a gold mine. And I think that may not be a gold nugget in itself, but it's certainly a gold mine. And that's what's been clear in this past year. We started Potty Talk Live. It was February. It was Valentine's Day. It's 2018, and so we've had over 100 episodes. I think we're about 120 episodes, and through that, again, talking with guys all over the world, both in the truck and out of the truck. Residential service plumbing is a gold mine.
Yeah, I want to add on one thing because I'm on Google Home Services. So when somebody orders a garage door opener or spring, they could request that it gets installed. Now, they're measuring a lot of things. First of all, they do a background check. Secondly, we got to be certified. They check our insurance, just like Google Guarantee Program. And then now they're capturing if we show up on time with a selfie of the tech. So my prediction is this: within the next three years, maybe up to 5, is no longer will the certain things on your toilet, anything, plumbing, anything to do with your house, everybody's going to be going to institutions like Google, Facebook, Amazon to order it. And then what's going to happen is they're going to verify that you're a good company. So I'm simply going to say, Siri or Alexa or whatever, send me a good plumber from this time to this time. And it's going to be like an Uber service where you go claim the job. It knows how good you are. And if you tell somebody they should do it on all 5 toilets, they're going to go, okay, I know exactly what I should pay for that because this is how much Amazon charges for it. That's what I'm willing to pay. And Amazon will take a piece of that. And I told my guys, they're going to want to know where you're at. It's going to tell, just like Service Time tells the customer when you arrive. And I do believe that the commoditization of most industries is coming, and we got to be prepared for it and jump on head first. Take advantage of these Amazon Home Services today. Right now. Exactly. Get used to it. Get your guys used to it. Start doing background checks. It's going to change the game. And they're collecting. Artificial intelligence is just the sum of a lot of data and the probability that this will happen this way. And that's all it is. So literally they're carrying certain things. They know the probability of you showing up on time after they get thousands of records from you. So it's very, very important. There's a good book called The Raving Fans and Creating Amazing Customer Fans of Your Business. Because if not, I just feel that the rules are changing. There's not going to be anything as fake reviews anymore because they're all because they're verified and there's pictures and they know geographically you were there because my phone I'm looking at right now has a GPS in it. So they know you were there. I just think the game is changing, and jump in head first and be prepared, because if you don't, it's kind of like having a website. I know a lot of guys that say I don't have a website, but these days you kind of do, right? Exactly. You got to be involved in those things. Amen, brother. I agree with you 100%. And, if you're not Google verified, get Google verified. If you don't understand Google, understand Google. It's happening. And so just to say that I don't understand or don't know how to play that game or don't know what it's about, you just can't afford to do that. Or sell fast, because it's changing and it's getting really, really, every year that goes by is just another year that you're worth less and less. Amen. So what is, the last thing I like to close with is 2 questions. Number one is, if you had to give me 3 books that you enjoy or Audible books or whatever, what are 3 books that really stick out to you that some of the listeners want to read going into this new year? Oh, boy, good question there. But my go-to, even what I'm reading right now, and this is The Science of Getting Rich. It's a weird title, okay? It's The Science of Getting Rich. It was written back in the early 1900s. It's the grandfather of all these kind of, how to look at wealth and how, successful people look at wealth and all that those kinds of things. It's an easy read, even though it's kind of that little English from the early 1900s. It's a little weird, but it's a simple read. I have mine marked up. I'm reading it again. In fact, I've got a mastermind group and we're reading it there.
head with, plumbing companies, that kind of thing. So I really recommend that and how you can create your own life. Okay. A book that really affected me, and again, this is old stuff, but it affected me, and I'll still pull it out and read it, is In Search of Excellence. And it's the idea of building a company with excellence, okay? And how you look at everything in an excellent manner. And so those are two books that I I've read recently here. And that I've read many times and brought back. A book that I've read recently, and this is to sound just because I've just been intrigued by it. I've seen this guy online, Grant Cardone. I don't know if you've heard of him, I'm sure, probably. He's pretty big out there.
Yep.
But I'll admit, I just read his 10X book. I was intrigued by that, and it just was intrigued by the guy as I'm watching some of his stuff. And of course, he's put out some other books, but just read his 10X.
10X is great. It's you know what it is about 10X that I love is it causes you think about 2019 and how you're going to do 10 times this year. Because what happens is extraordinary growth, because you got to think of different ways. It's not going to be, I'm not going to 10 times. I mean, I spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on Google. There's so many things that I can't do more. So what can I do? There's 3 ways to make money. Get more customers, charge your customers more money, or keep them coming back for more. So my thing is now, I know I could be really big if I started selling storage solutions, because I'm already in the garage, but guys can install them. So I don't need a lie cheater still either. You reminded me of a book called Think and Grow Rich. It's a really old book, and great book. And there's a book that was written after that recently called 3 Feet from Gold. I recommend. It kind of goes along with that Napoleon Hill book. And then lastly, if we could leave the listeners with one good thought, one thing we might have not touched upon, what would it be?
I think I'll leave it with this, how I close out my Potty Talks, that you were purposefully and wonderfully created, and you were created to do great things. So when you're out there doing your thing, as always, plumb like a champion.
Nice. Well, I got to go potty here pretty soon. All right. I really appreciate you jumping on. What state are you in?
Indiana.
Beautiful. Midwest is the best. Man. I love it.
Oh, man, I appreciate being on the program. It's been fun. I appreciate it, Tommy. Thanks, man.
Hey, guys, I really appreciate you tuning into the podcast. I wanted to let you know that my book is available right now on Amazon. It's called The Home Service Millionaire. That's homeservicemillionaire.com. Just go to the website. It'll show you exactly where and how to buy the book. I poured 2 years of knowledge into this book, and I had 12 contributors. Everybody from the COO at Home Advisor to the CEO of Valpak, and of course, Ara, the CEO of Service Titan. It tells you how to have the right mindset and become a millionaire and think like a millionaire. It goes into exactly how to turn on lead generation, have those phones ringing off the hook for the customers that you want to be calling, where you can make money and get great reviews. It also goes into simple things like how to attract A players. Listen, if you want a great apple pie, you need to buy good apples, and you need to know where to buy those apples. And it also talks about simple things like knowing how to keep the score. You should have your financial check every week. You should know exactly what's coming in and out of your account. You should know when to cut advertising that's not working. And more than anything, you should know how to cut employees that aren't making it for you. Listen, you might have a big heart, but this book is going to show you how to make decisions built on numbers. I hope you pick up the book, and I really appreciate everything. I hope you're having a great day. Tune in next week. Thank you.